Thank you very much. My name is Ted McIntire. Thank you for that introduction. I am a student here at Fayetteville Tech Community College. And that is actually a very important detail in this presentation and what I'm trying to do. What I have put together is a nonprofit entity. So to properly understand, I realize that the 1 Million Cups, a lot of the people that participate, and when I participated in the past, it's been with the orientation of a for-profit business. And my rudimentary understanding, forgive me if this is too rudimentary, but it's something that I wanted to kind of put things into context. In a for-profit business, we have a product or a service, and you're generating economic activity. And all the help that the 1 Million Cups provides and the whole wealth of business knowledge is oriented towards that. For myself, in a nonprofit entity, the way I have simplified it is what I am actually doing is a social cause or promoting a certain point of view that resonates with a certain group of individuals or a wider community. And we're not necessarily generating any economic activity, but it's for the movement itself, to raise the awareness, to network with people who would be, with whom the message would resonate. So with that overview and understanding, I get my inspiration from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This is from the King Center website. And I don't use the term evil. What I identify with is what I believe all of humanity is doing is transcending poverty, racism, and militarism. This is something that has been a recurring theme in the evolution of humanity, the evolution of our societies. And what I find is that there are supercycle waves that occur in society every 50 years, other waves that occur every 80 years. I find that they're falling again during the 2010s. So if we go back 50 years, 100 years, 150 years, you'll see that there were events of when the existing paradigm that the society or culture operated under was no longer serving the best interest of the vast majority of the society. And so there was a need to reorient and reorganize. This actually is well covered in a presentation that David Brooks gave here in North Carolina at at the Duke Family Performance Hall at Davidson College. And I'm just going to skip to minute 39, and we're going to listen to about 30 seconds of this presentation. It kind of puts things in perspective. These times that we're living through. Whoops, hold on. I'm going to put this sound up.
The New York Times, the Washington Post, and most people at the Wall Street Journal, you can hurl your columns against the wall. It doesn't seem to do much good. And so you do sort of learn the lesson of the folks in the 60s who made that cultural shift, whether it was Port Huron or feminism, that what changes history is not so much individuals, that does, but social movements. You've got to create an organization of people, that community that people want to join, and they'll bend their energies toward you and mobilize their energies toward you.
Since I feel strongly about these topics, I have sought out organizations whose message I find resonates with me, and I bend my energy towards them. I also find myself in a position where I have a lot of experience, passion, resources to share, and find that if I am able to create an entity, a nonprofit entity, that will draw the attention to these particular topics, it will be of use to the local and the wider community. So when we talk about transcending poverty, there's a lot of activity currently ongoing. These two gentlemen are very well known for giving their wealth away to better society in general. Nevertheless, they are still the number 1 and number 3 richest people in the United States. So there's still work yet to be done. Let's see. The second, transcending racism. This picture says a lot. We could spend a whole day just describing this. What this shows for me is that the amazing achievement of having a person of color as a president of the United States is an incredible achievement. And I believe that President Obama did achieve wonderful things during his presidency, but there is still a great amount of work to be done, both nationally and internationally, to overcome old stereotypes and old barriers. Lastly, overcoming the militarism. Probably everybody is aware of the I Have a Dream speech. Martin Luther King Jr. is also on record for his talk, which he gave and which was recorded. I believe May 8th, 1967 is the correct date, where he describes his dream having turned into a nightmare. And what he is describing is the effort in the last years of his life to transcend the militarism that was a key component of the difficulties that society was facing, along with racism and poverty. 50 years later, we have, and what I consider the identity of this current movement, is this person from the movie Black Panther, a citizen of Wakanda, female, a former member of the Dora Milaje, I think I'm pronouncing it close to correct, which was the part of the national security of the Wakanda state, who then transitioned into another role of fulfilling some of the human security functions of that community. So particularly what got me activated, and this happened 2.5 weeks ago on March 4th, all these ideas came together and I realized that there was a tremendous opportunity with the March for Our Lives. And the March for Our Lives is taking place in Washington, D.C., and there's going to be multiple hundreds of sister marches throughout the nation and throughout the world. If you visit the website, you will find a lot of information on that. The march is going to take place along Pennsylvania Avenue. The White House is here. The Capitol building is here, so it's going to take place between 12th Street Northwest and 3rd Street Northwest along Pennsylvania Avenue. What I'll mention, since we have the map up at this point, is that there is a park, Pershing Park, right here, where I assume a lot of people will be gathered, and we'll do some of our networking activities there before the march, as well as here at 1st Street and Pennsylvania Avenue, there is what's called the Peace Monument. It's actually a Civil War peace monument. And our pilot in command for our drone has placed a request with the Federal Aviation Administration to fly a drone 50 feet horizontally above the ground to take aerial footage of this march, and that'll be part of a documentary that we hope to produce about the March for Our Lives. This march will be taking place on the 24th of this month, which is this coming weekend, starts at noon. So, let's see. Oh yeah, so we're let's see. So anyone could do this, go online and find for themselves.
My dad once said,
Let me to some of the other different documentaries that have been
Well, Fallon, it's probably...
different demonstrations that have happened in recent months.
And why is it important for you to be here today?
Because our whole society is built on science. Everything we do, everything we have, everything we see around us was built on scientific principles. That's so important.
We don't think that I anticipate to be experienced in this.
Why is it important for you to be here today?
I'm Terry Gallo, and I feel very angry about what's happening to women in our country after all the heartache that we've gone through over the years. To take a step backward yesterday was just not fair. We need our issues, and I'm here to fight for their rights. He's a bigot. He's angry. He's an idiot. And he needs to be locked up.
I have a niece and I want to march for her. I want to march for the little girls in my neighborhood. All the little girls coming up behind us. I think it's important to be here.
That didn't go quite as smoothly as I hoped, but I hope you got the impression that there's going to be a lot of people there and they're going to have a lot of individual expressions of their message. So being fully respectful of that, what my intention is to be able to communicate the social causes that I am believing in and I am promoting, not necessarily to convince anyone else of my position. I'm respectful of each and every individual seeing the world through their own prism. But to network with those people who are there, who might resonate with or feel resonation with the concepts that we're promoting, and that also might have ideas to share. So with that, and kind of an outline of what's transpiring, what I can do is share with you the wow statements that this group actually helped me develop last week, which I've called the key concepts and summary statements. And this is the mental preparation that I will give to myself and the other people who are part of this effort if we're interacting with individuals, each other, particularly if we get any media exposure. This could be very helpful and valuable. If I were to meet with any of you in the hallways here or in the downtown area of our community, or over the weekend, 2-3 weeks ago or 2-3 months ago, and we were to discuss any of the topics that were a concern for us, we could spend 15 or 20 minutes getting to the heart of what really concerns us. So this exercise that I greatly benefited from with the 1 Million Cups organization, going through the wow statements, what I call the key concepts and summary statements, were very beneficial. So I'm sharing these with you to give you an idea of what efforts we're actually involved with and how we understand them and how we express them. And this could be an opportunity for you all to give me feedback, or if you prefer, I can move forward a few steps and we can open it up for a general discussion after that. Does anyone have any questions or comments that they want to give at this time?
I have a question. What did you say your name was, sir?
My name is Ted McIntire, given name Theodore.
Ted, what are you trying to do? Don't say I'm trying to get weapons off drones, but tell me, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get somebody are you trying to formulate a movement? Are you trying to create a business? You're selling drones with no weapons? Tell me what the end game is.
The immediate objective is to participate in the March for Our Lives, and at that location, network and identify with people who would be part of a natural network to interact with. There's estimated to be 500,000 marchers. Personally, I think that this event could be as important to our society as both Woodstock and the Civil Rights March were 50 years ago. Put those together. Maybe, we'll see. We'll see how that works out. So with 500,000 marchers, if I can find or I can connect with 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of those marchers, you're talking about a few hundred people. What I will have is I have this type of information stored in my head, in my heart. I will have, and the other people who are supporting me. I will have these flyers that you're going to receive. I have the websites already established, and I have the Twitter accounts already established. So maybe this is a good. Did that answer your question?
No.
Okay.
So okay, you have the 100 people, the 200, the 500 people that you're seeking. Now what? What are you doing? Where are you going?
Get weapons off of drones. That's
How?
it. How? The best example I could give is most of us should be aware of nuclear weapons. We have nuclear weapons on the ground, we have nuclear weapons underwater, and we have nuclear weapons in the air. There are no nuclear weapons circling the Earth, orbiting the Earth. Do any of us feel like we are less safe because we do not have nuclear weapons orbiting the Earth? I don't think anyone would answer affirmatively. Why don't we have nuclear? Why does no one have nuclear weapons orbiting the Earth? Because there's an Outer Space Treaty was established in 1967 to prohibit such a thing. Okay, it's a if world history had taken a different route, it could very well be that we have nuclear weapons orbiting the Earth. If you see the film 2001: A Space Odyssey, when the ape throws the bone up into the air because he's learned how to use a tool, and the aggression against fellow creature, the fellow whatever was that ancestor of the Homo sapien, is using this military aggression, this militarism. It turns into an orbiting space vehicle in the film. I think everyone remembers that visual. It's not evident in the film, but if you read the book, the meaning is there are nuclear weapons in space orbiting the Earth. And the message in that film is very powerful, and I won't get into it, but film has a great impression, makes a great impression on the society. In the web page, and in presentations, we can talk about the film Dr. Strangelove. Dr. Strangelove came out in 1963 or 1964. Outer Space Treaty was in 1967. It's not a coincidence that the reaction that film caused in the end consequence in 1967 of signing an Outer Space Treaty came to fruition. I think the same potential exists now. And I think the key film for our year, for our decade, for our century, and maybe for the millennium is Black Panther. Initially, I was at the opening of the Black Panther. I just happened to be there. I understood it was a celebration. It was a monumentous achievement for the African American community to take this concept that was created out of Marvel Comics. And I understood it as that, and I saw how our news media portrayed that. It took me a few weeks to understand the greater implication of this film. Possibly I got it before most other people because I spent a decade in human security. Wakanda is an entity, a community that has a balance between human security and national security. I find that in my perception of our society and other societies around the world is we're way out of balance. with national security and human security. And we need to bring that back into balance. I think that these are epic times. The way I describe it, I have a son who is a captain in the U.S. Air Force. I myself am retired U.S. military. I spent 3 decades in national security, and I wasn't satisfied. I spent 1 decade in what's called human security, or humanitarian activities. And what I feel is that these two need to come into balance, and this is one of the issues of our time. I call it the lion laying down with the lamb. And if you go to the passage in the Bible that references that, what follows is, and the little child will lead them. So this is why I am taking my lead from the March for Our Lives. It's a roundabout way of answering your question, but I don't see getting weapons off of drones as unachievable. And it would be talking about an international treaty. I don't know if that's how achievable that is. I don't know if my organization will merge with others and there'll be a consensus of what is achievable at this point in time. There's lots of organizations out there becoming very active, and there's lots of issues to be resolved. And I'm not opposed to evolving, to growing in my level of understanding, and to put my efforts behind what I think will bring the best well-being to our communities locally, nationally, and internationally. Is that a more comprehensive answer to your question?
Yes, sir.
Dean.
One of the things that we've been talking about is that in our society now, their attention span is significantly less than it used to be. When you could sit down before work and have a nice little discussion on the front porch, and now people are like, boom, 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 I need to know what it is you're selling. You give us a lot of reasons why you feel the way you feel. But in my opinion, you need to get a little faster to your call of action, because you're going to lose people after so many minutes. They're going to go, okay, and you're going to continue talking. They're like, what am I going to do today? Oh, I got that appointment today. Their mind is already wondering. You got to get to your call to action faster, and you've got to get stronger in your call to action, because you spend a lot of time, like I said, telling us why you feel that way, instead of, hey, this is a serious issue. This is what can cause if you've got weapons on. You got to get me to why I should feel the way you feel, not why you feel the way you did. Obviously, you have a reason for it, but you got to get me to the point where I want to do a call to action. I see why we need it. Now, what do I need to do to try to prevent this from happening? Kind of like you just talked about with the outer space with the treaty. You got to get to that selling point faster, because you're going to lose your people.
I agree. So thank you for that feedback. So with your initial question, and my initial answer was, let's get weapons off drones. And I anticipate that that type of a response I would be satisfied if it resonated with 1/10 of 1% of the 500,000 people that are there, that we can somehow network with and connect with. So what's being passed out now are flyers that we're physically going to be at the march and passing out. And so, actually I gave out all my copies. So when a person gets this flyer, they'll see Drones for Peace, which is the message, keeping innocents locally and internationally safe from weapons and free from fear. Okay? So this flyer is communicating essentially what Dean Burns is suggesting, as well as there's all these there's actually four websites here. What's all that about? So someone might pass this on to someone else, or someone might hold on to it and investigate further. And with this, any of you with your, what I call the neurons, are neurons to connect to the global brain, and the marchers, I imagine most of them will have this, and they'll have internet servers. If they're curious, they can tap in and go to any of those websites. We also have call these, banners or whatnot. But before I get into that, you had a question.
Yes, I understand exactly what you said, Drones for Peace, but it kind of just, like you was explaining, okay, from the beginning, I understood that, I understood the title, but I'm trying to understand a clear point, like exactly what the, I guess what the stance is for.
What problem
What is
are
the
you
threat?
talking
Yeah,
about
what is
getting
the threat?
yourself
Is there
from?
something
Yeah,
that's
like,
happening?
What is it that you're getting into? Because you're explaining that the drones will be flying over the march. Clear. I got that part. So these drones, they're going to be recording what's going on, and then you're going to.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
I'm just not getting a clear picture of what's going on.
Okay. So this presentation is to a 1 Million Cups group. So I'll go into detailed explanations and answer your questions.
So,
and I gave you kind of a background to what the environment that I'll be in. Literally at the march, there'll be estimated 500,000, mostly students. I'm a student also, I'll be there, but mostly young people. And they're marching as a result of the shootings in the school, the mass shootings in the school. So they have a particular orientation. Okay? My understanding is that a great number of those will have the orientation, we need to keep schools safe, we need to keep guns out of schools. There are maybe some that believe, well, we need more people with guns in schools. I'm not going to try to convince anyone of anything. I'm going to be there handing out these flyers. I'm going to be there with placards, directing people to the website. And the website is where the questions can be answered. If I were to march along other students with or without a sign and have conversations, that conversation might last 15 seconds or 15 minutes. And beyond that, it would have subtle implications for the participants. But what I'm looking for is to establish a network, a known network of people who are interested in the same concept. If they're interested in getting guns out of schools, they might also be interested in getting weapons off of drones. So drones can be used for civilian and humanitarian purposes, or they can be used for military purposes. What I'm advocating is not use drones for military purposes.
You'd rather send in the troops than send in the drones?
I understand what you're saying, and my position is that right now, at our point in history, I think it's appropriate to take weapons off of drones. If they have an international
I myself am a veteran, but I would rather see 10 drones shot down before I see one of my brothers or sisters. I'm sorry.
Understand?
So that's just.
So this may not resonate with you, and again, I'm looking for if I find 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of the group that's marching.
What problem are you solving by weapons being on drones?
And when you say weapons,
Let me address that. I want to know what problem are you solving?
So
I can see many lives being saved, but I don't see a problem.
I'll answer that, but as I answer that, I'm going to go back to so we're here, social cause or point of view, and to generate a social movement. So my social cause or point of view is to get weapons off of drones.
Because?
Right. Now.
Because what? You want to get weapons off of drones because weapons on drones save U.S. troops' lives. And I don't get the direction you're going in.
So what you're describing is a valid perspective. I understand this perspective. I have one son who works drones for purely humanitarian reasons. I have another son who is in the U.S. Air Force, and he works in the elite forces. I don't share your particular social cause or
I
your
don't have a
particular-
cause. I'm asking a question that you haven't answered.
Okay.
What problem are you solving
So-
by taking weapons off the drones? What is the problem that's being solved?
The
What's your
problem is our society, my point of view is our society has become excessively militaristic, as well as other societies around the world, excessively militaristic. That's my point of view. Others, especially in the community I'm presenting here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, we have the largest U.S. military base in the nation, U.S. Army base in the nation. This may not be a point of view that's shared by the majority here, or may not be a particularly an idea that's widely accepted here, but that is my point of view. So one of the conditions of this presentation is that it was going to be of a nonprofit organization, not a political argument about racism, not a political argument about poverty, nor a political argument about militarism. Yes, Dean?
I want to move that to a business thing, but I want to address something about his question first. I'm not seeing this necessarily as a political difference of opinion, because clearly you two are going to have very different opinions. But you need to be able to answer that question to anyone who asks that what it is, because that's part of articulating your cause. Mm-hmm. If you are having a social cause point of view, you need to articulate why this is an issue. But you have to understand, people are going to have differences of opinion, but you're going to have to come up with an answer to that question. But let's move this to a business standpoint. You've already given me 2 flyers. You've got some signs. You're traveling to these different events. How are you funding your nonprofit?
Okay. The travel, I'm funding myself. In the establishment of the websites, I funded myself. That's it.
Are you intending that to, when this cause grows, when you meet up with people who are like-minded, are you going to continue to pay out of money?
It's really going to depend on the response. One of the great aspects, I'm a information technology student here at Fayetteville Tech Community College. And that, they have a wide range of classes here, from website development to programming to databases.
To nonprofit management, may I add?
Okay. Within IT or within the business?
It's NPO is a prefix. NPO is a prefix.
It's in business.
Okay, it's in business.
But the prefix is NPO. We do have nonprofit management.
And I did not, the genesis of this idea literally happened on the 4th of March of this year. And so it's been 2.5 weeks that I've compiled what we see here. And I've been entirely focused on getting the websites up and getting prepared and taking advantage of this networking opportunity of this coming weekend. So the questions that are asked are valid. The observation that I may not be responding to what's beyond this particular event of this weekend is very valid. So the response that will come afterwards, if there's a dozen people who wind up visiting the websites have counters on them. So if afterwards we go up to Washington, D.C., and there's been 100 visits to the website, and after the weekend is over, there's 115 visits to the website, I know that I'm in a very, 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 very small minority, and this just doesn't resonate with the public. And I'm not really in favor of hitting my head against the wall. So what the approach that I'm taking, for whatever reason, may not be something that is culturally relevant at this point in time. However, if there's a much wider response as well.
Can I ask you a question first?
Yep.
It's not even a question, it's a statement. I understand what you're doing, and I'm not here to debate, or I don't think anybody's here to debate right or wrong. Most of us are business folks, and we're here simply saying there needs to be a problem you have to address to have a viable business. You have to feel a need. So I guess the question here was, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Follow what Dean Burns is saying. What need are you feeling for your audience, whoever their audience may be, that you're addressing? And if you don't have that, you don't really have, you're just creating networking. You just bring a movement. So
Very good.
But you gotta answer that particular question. What problem am I solving for my audience?
Excellent.
Because you're trying to sell your movement.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
And
So-
there
so-
has to be something
When you
that
say
you-
weapons, are you referring to nuclear weapons or what type of
Here's
weapons?
these are excellent question. Here's the web page. There are sister sites, so I'm going to go to one of these sister sites. And here is what I call the Yemen infographic. Please go load. Here's the biggest point that I'd like to make. And this would be maybe addressing some of the questions that came earlier. Why the U.S. must stop selling weapons now to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates.
But you can direct us to this all day, but if you're not making a clear point as to what's going on and why, nobody is really catching what the point is of drones for peace.
Okay, let me go through this, and because I think it addresses some of the things that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Here's a population of U.S. and Yemen. Here's the yearly deaths from weapons in U.S. versus the war in Yemen. These are USA adults and children. This is Yemen children only. There's text
Heard of
here.
Neville Chamberlain?
Let me finish, please.
I'll take that for no.
Percentage killed by weapons in the U.S. versus the war in Yemen. Okay? A child in Yemen was approximately 45 times more likely to be killed by war, including death due to precision weapons and blockade, than all the adults and children in the U.S. who were killed by guns. Furthermore, I think the marchers at the March for Peace will understand this chart, which is the USA school shootings in 2017 amounted to 10. We have a problem, my perspective, with weapons and militarization in our society. It's gaining the national attention because what's happening to innocent children inside of schools. But I believe it's a much, much wider issue. I see it going back 50 years. I see the Reverend Martin Luther King addressing it 50 years ago.
This be like the problem is I'm trying to mitigate violence, right? I'm just trying to get you to narrow the scope of what the problem you're trying to.
I see half a dozen to a dozen different issues that can be addressed. And I have populated these websites. I have populated these websites with the information that I think will resonate at least with 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of the marchers. And depending on how they respond, is how I'll know that there may be some good that I can contribute with these people to society.
But as an environmentalist, I understand that awareness brings change, but you've got to be able to do more to direct them to, you've got to give them more information than this.
Okay, the information is here.
Solve that problem.
The information is here.
No. I think I can summarize what people are trying to say. You need to focus. You're kind of all over the place. You need to focus because if you really want people to listen to you, you've got to get a clear, distinct message.
Okay.
And I mean, one minute you're talking about guns in schools, and I see that it all eventually connects, but you kind of are moving around. You need to focus your message before you present your message.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to say.
So the way I've done that thus far in these 2.5 weeks is creating these 4 websites, and each website will have a message. Get weapons out of school, get weapons off of drones. That's my message.
So really, it's anti-weapons. Is that what you're
Demand
trying
child
to say?
safety be a priority,
No, we're all doing it.
right? This is another.
So you take all the weapons out of the school. The people that bring them in there and kill people don't have permission. I'm trying.
Outlaw guns, only outlaws have guns.
Yeah. Here's what I want to say. I think you could answer our question if you just go back to the beginning of when you first decided to make the web page. Why did you make the web? What hit you and you went, you know what? I don't want weapons on drones, and this is why. And I'm going to go talk about it. Why don't you want weapons on drones specifically? Because that's your point that you're pointing us at.
This is a very good question. So I can bring you back 25 years ago, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. I was a captain doing foreign military sales in the F-16 program office. And I said, Well, what am I going to do? There's going to be a nice peace dividend now. What I saw was U.S. defense industry in concert with the Secretary of the Air Force Acquisition, Office of Acquisition, reneging on international agreements with NATO partners about co-production of the F-16. They were reneging. Why? Because of national security needs? No. Pure greed. I saw disingenuous activity being conducted within the Pentagon with NATO allies. And I've consistently seen evidence of this. I saw and reported corruption when I was in Afghanistan. It was not addressed. I've addressed this subsequently. I've been a lamplighter. When I've seen it, I've spoken up. If you see something, say something. I don't see us changing direction. I don't see our society changing direction. So for me, these are the.
You think taking guns away from people is going to make things better for the society?
Guns out of schools.
What is the law that you're going to change? Because it's already a gun-free zone.
It's not for me to decide. It's not for me to decide.
Question.
Yes.
She's been waiting to ask a question.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. So I kind of now piggybacking on Dean Burns' statement. I'm seeing, Very quick. But no, that's what I was going to say. You are serving as a nonprofit. Nonprofit should have a central mission or a central focus. And you've talked about the points that I've written down: society in Yemen, guns in schools, which your website on society in Yemen didn't really show much of an issue with guns in schools here as opposed to Yemen. So we've got two topics there: drones being an issue, which the common person is going to take drones as a recreational vehicle, where we put a camera on it, we drive around, and we have fun and video. Why is there an issue with drones? Racism, the Black Panther, we've talked about greed, we've talked about corruption, we've talked about diplomacy, we've talked about other civilizations, we've talked about the Berlin Wall. We are all over the place. So the focus is what would be more important versus spending time making 4 different websites with 4 different missions. I feel like you would have much more success, and I can tell that you're very passionate about this, but you would have much more success if you could figure out a concise.
So I think this was one of my first. Transcend poverty, racism, and militarism. What was Dr. King doing? These things.
Right,
and how do you do it?
But that's not even on your website. So when if I were to go on one of your websites, I'd have to hunt for that information.
Well, that's right. That's right. And this gets to a very key point, which I recognize, is that
it's just too much.
One of the challenges that our society faces is a large amount of people are reading headlines, and that's it. So I think if it's a headline issue, if it's a matter of reading headlines and solving the problem, it's not going to get solved.
I don't think it's a matter of reading headlines, though, because we've been in here for 45 minutes now discussing this, and I think I don't know if any of us can.
Don't put me in the back.
Understand.
I
got it.
Okay, I didn't just sit right here separate from you guys because I'm separate. Thing is, and we're together in one class, in database management class. And so when he approached me about this presentation, I was like, okay, I understand your message. That's why I'm here. Because I've not been to any of your 1 Million Cups meeting before. This is a social issue, not a business issue. But he does need to have, and I agree, a simple statement, business statement that says, and you can include the drones as being part of what your objective is. So you can have your business statement is, we need to demilitarize our society, and first mission, do not use weapons on drones, because it has international, local, national, consequences. So violence is not a solution. You can even say violence is not a solution. I'm bringing in another solution. See what I mean?
Yeah.
A business is either trying to sell you something or give you a solution. If I'm buying a software, then I'm trying to find a solution to my issue. If I'm buying a product, that's because I'm a consumer and I want to have that for entertainment reasons, for this reason, or for that reason. So in that statement, you need to have a reason why. We are supposed to listen to you. Now, you are very hesitant about the fact that this is a social issue that can be very controversial. So that's what made you more wishy-washy, which means everybody's kind of going all over the place, but because you are you understand that this is a sensitive issue and you don't want it political.
If I might.
And I don't think it's a matter of it being a social issue because I can separate myself from the social portion of it and just look at it from a business perspective. My statement was in regards to it being a nonprofit business perspective. You have 4 websites, and I overheard somebody say, we try hard to get people to go to one website. You have 4 with 4 different stances and 4 different statements. You need to bring it together to one and have that be your mission.
Understood. Understood. If I could say one thing, understood, and all the comments I've received thus far are very helpful, very valuable, even if you don't necessarily agree with my point of view, or even if I didn't necessarily have the correct answer. If I were to identify the one overriding objective is, at this point in our history, our culture has the opportunity to transcend a lot of these racism, poverty, and militarism issues. That's my overall.
Ted, right there, you focus. Right there, you focus.
And thanks to your...
that's the focus you need. And therefore you say, okay, now, what are my steps to accomplish this?
Right.
Boom.
My confusion is,
I understand.
Get this out, and those are the follow-ups.
People to agree with your point of view, to want to engage in whatever it is that you have going on.
I will consider myself successful if I find 1/2 of 1/10 of...
Understood. I got that. But at the same time, you have to be able to have other people engage and understand what's going on to a point. Like understand like
to help you
what it is. Not like your point of view is. I mean, I get it. It's awesome, but you can't. I can't. I'm not gonna say you can't because I'm not. But.
So what people want, and I'm a mathematician, what people want at that point in time are facts.
Facts.
So she's looking for
basically,
facts. Tell
all
me
I want to know
why.
is what's going on and why, and what is my reasoning for wanting to tell somebody else about this? What is my reasoning for wanting to use this website or engage in this organization, or even if I wanted to help fund or donate money to your nonprofit organization, where would my money be going to? I can't even I can't say that because I have no clue.
See what I mean?
I understand. If I'm going to interact with a crowd of 500,000 people, I can't do that individually. And I'm not going to do it with a presentation.
But we're here in a presentation, and that's what's supposed to be going on. This is my first time in 1 Million Cup presentation, and I mean, don't get I'm happy with the information. Yep. I'm glad for it, but at the same time, I want to know exactly what 45 minutes or an hour of my time was spent doing, because I don't want to keep running around in circles in my head to try to get to the point that you should have given me in the beginning.
Well, I went through the 10 steps, which was the orientation.
10 steps. That's a lot of steps. Like I'm like super like ADHD. I need like 3. We get to this one, this one, this one. Boom! I know what's going on, and I'm not the only one that don't that's not there.
And I have to publicly thank Dean Burns because I made her aware that I'm seeing this opportunity coming up this weekend, and I've been working double time, triple time to capture the chance to find which issues will resonate.
But you can't have 50. You got to get 5.
Oh, I can because I have.
I mean, you can. But who's going to listen after you ask the first 30? Maybe the first 10.
All I care right now is what I find achievable is a 1/2. 1/10.
Okay. All right. We're out of time, so.
No, I'm not trying to sell all of you on anything.
Okay. Done.
Let's say one thing.
Yeah.
Pick up that
Right. Essentially what you're doing is you're going to a trade show. You got all these interested people there. You got about one, put that down. That right there. Take one thing. One thing. You need a funnel. People you're approaching are not prospects. They're not customers. They're suspects. They become prospects when they interact with you. You spent all this time building this stuff, which is a major accomplishment, but it's too much stuff. Get them in a funnel. You get them to respond to that, start a conversation, you say, go to that website. On that website, you have a capture form. They put their email address. Now you've got a core of people you can work with. That's all you can expect of this thing. You cannot do all this there. And I would take all the sister sites off your website. It's just my suggestion. Wait, you just do what you want to do. But I'm telling you from experience, your job is to go there and get a couple hundred people that you can keep conversing with. You're not going to do it with this. This is your whole attitude in all this. All this information is laudable, but it doesn't do what you want it to do.
And as you want to
It's just too much. You got to funnel it to one thing. The headline is what gets them there. Then you can take, when you get them on a webinar or you get them on an email list where you can go over these things and introduce them, or better yet, ask them what they're interested in from that point on, and then go in that direction. But with all this, you won't get one half of 1%. One thing, one time, you got that much time to get their attention and do it. That's what I do.
Focus and grow is what he's trying to say.
Do you
Focus and
think
grow.
it would work if you just had the one website and broke it down in different curtains underneath that one website? So he's not wanting to do away with what his work is.
So make multiple websites on multiple funnels with different people. If they want to read about it, then they can click on that and go from there.
You can't ensure world peace and get everybody a job and stop abortion and keep Obama from greasing people with drones all at the same time. You have to do one thing and get them on board and then go with them from there. To say that about the other websites is because I spend all my time driving customers to one website and put them in a funnel so that they can become customers, repeat customers, then ambassadors for that business. If I get them to I spend all this time getting them to my website, and then I send them somewhere else, it's like, shoot me now.
Russian people.
You should
You've
also
wasted
take.
all your time because you confused the issue.
Okay.
Very valuable.
We're out of time.
Thank you.